Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton. And in case you've been under a rock, there has been a lot of things happen in the Circle City. Yes, Naptown. Yes, that is Indianapolis. Boy, oh boy. And it's only Tuesday. But I want to bring on someone that actually, keeps a keen eye on what's going on with the Indianapolis Colts. And of course, there's been a lot, like I mentioned. The Indianapolis Intercept's own Meghan. What's going on?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me on, Mike, and allowing me the platform because I'm sure I'm gonna say quite a bit of things that are on my mind this week. Yeah, I think you said it. It's been a week, and today's only Tuesday. Trying to process the last, I would say, 48 hours, and really the last month for the Colts has been a lot, a lot.
Yeah, it's been a rough one. I must admit, I'm not a Colts fan, but just watching it, it's been one of those things that you see a train and you see trains heading colliding towards each other. You don't want to look, but you kind of cover over your face and peek through your hands. This has kind of been one of those kind of moments for the last month, unfortunately. Of course, let's start with the original domino to fall. Well, I would say the second domino because Marcus Brady was the first one, which I still have some thoughts on that. But Frank Reich finally got fired as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. I guess he ran out of people to blame.
Oh,
But what was your reaction when you heard the news that Frank had been tanked in Indianapolis?
well, I actually want to go back because you made a point about, Brady being the first domino to fall. In my mind, it was actually Matt Ryan. That was the first domino to fall. That was the first scapegoat. It was Matt Ryan can't play. He's not mobile enough. We need a younger quarterback, all those sorts of things. And it became, oh, well, we'll just throw a new quarterback out there and it's fine. It'll fix everything. And it didn't. You didn't fix anything on the offensive line. Then you blame Marcus Brady for, hey, the entire offense's ineptitude. And somehow you managed to look worse without Brady, leading to Frank Reich being fired after 9 sacks in New England and the literal inability to move the offense down the field. My initial thoughts were, one, I thought it was about 2 seasons too late. And I know people are going to be like, what, 2 seasons? Yeah. I've been really disappointed in Frank Reich's tenure for the fact of it's always been very slow starts to not only games but to seasons. Starting 1-4, 1-5, the team has consistently had to dig itself out of holes, and that's not very fair to all the work and effort that the players have put in. Um, and I think for me, while I believe Frank is a really good person, I actually really like who he is as a person. I believe he struggled as a head coach. It very much looked like on the field that he had lost the locker room. And I'd been reading in, I don't know, maybe several different areas of Colts, circles about there being almost a division between the offense and the defense. Defense is happy; they are literally, they're cohesive unit, and you could tell that even in the actual locker room. Defense on one side, offense on the other side, and yeah, the aura about the defense is different. You see that on the field. But that offense is a direct reflection of Frank Reich. And I don't care what anybody says, it is on Frank Reich at the end of the day. Like that, it starts with you. And so for Frank to have this title of offensive genius, this guru, so to speak, we have failed at multiple options. We failed at the Carson Wentz juncture. We failed this season with getting the team prepared. He's consistently said on, I don't know, I don't know how many games, oh, well, we got out coached, or, I didn't have the team prepared, or, it was my job. Yeah, we know, Frank. We know. And I think Jim Irsay was largely tired of hearing that as well. And it was basically the sky fell on Sunday. And that's why, Frank was fired. So I wasn't necessarily shocked that it was that he was fired, but more so who was the interim coach. That announcement came shortly after. And I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yes, definitely, Mr. Jim Irsay. He looked around his staff. He's like, nah, I don't want any of these guys. Give me the old center for the sheriff, Mr. Jeff Saturday. Yes, he brought Jeff Saturday, who was a consultant for the team, to be the head coach. He of his last year coaching in high school football was 3-7, and now Jim Irsay names him the head coach of the team. Now, you kind of alluded to it. What was your first reaction when you saw that Jeff Saturday was named the head coach, the interim head coach, I might add, interim head coach for the Indianapolis Colts?
I literally thought it was a joke, to be honest with you. I saw that Adam Schefter tweet, and I had to double check that it was the correct account, because you've seen the Adam Schefter like parody accounts like around Twitter, and it was not. So I remember getting a text from my husband, and he's like, "Have you seen this? Like, what is happening?" And I'm like, "I have no idea. I really have no idea what's happening." Trying to just digest that, because I don't think that it got any clearer. If you watched the press conference this past week, it was like you alluded to, watching a train wreck. I felt really bad for Jeff Saturday, because he's trying to convince us, like, hey, we're going to be all right. Like, hey, I'm taking this opportunity, seriously. This is all the things I'm doing. And Jim Irsay didn't lend himself any favors by explaining his decision making or his thought process behind this decision. So it just added to my general confusion behind this choice, which led me to believe. And actually, if you watched Dan Orlovsky today, he was speaking about how Saturday had been talking about over the last several weeks. Hey, what do you think about this coach and that coach, and asking him a lot of questions outside of their ESPN jobs about coaching. So Dan Orlovsky said, well, now it all makes sense, that sort of thing, which makes me believe my initial thought, which, I mean, obviously, I don't know. I'm not in the building there, but it makes me believe, based on what I know about the Colts, what I know about the tendencies of Jim Irsay, that this was in his pocket for a while. And he kind of alluded to that last night. He said, you kind of keep a couple names in your pocket. Chris Ballard confirms, hey, we tried to bring him on as an offensive line coach in 2019. Try to get him here earlier this year. Like, there was no process. There was no, hey, I'm talking to anybody else. Like, Jeff Saturday was the guy. And probably what made it worse, and which, again, added to my confusion, was the fact that Jim Irsay said we didn't have a backup plan. He was the guy. I don't know what he would have done if he had said no. Like, that's what he said. I don't know what we would have done if he had said no. So I'm like, yeah, again, confusion is the only thing I have. Like, again, I think I tweeted it, literally I tweeted at the time, what is happening here? And I've been trying to make sense of it since then.
Yeah, it's a tough one to make sense of, and even tougher that, they won't have anyone that has called a offensive play in the NFL on their sideline. Their play caller, who might it be? Parks Frazier, former Murray State Racer quarterback, and of course he is an assistant quarterback coach. He will be calling the plays. Boy, oh boy, this doesn't sound like a Saturday Night Live episode. I don't know what does.
Yeah, I will say this. I wish Parks well. This is a tall task to be able to do. I think what I read earlier today, and I think it was maybe it was Greg Doyle that had written an article about it, but basically, Frazier was very close with Frank Reich, and had his ear, and he was involved in quite a little bit of the game planning and strategy there. So it makes sense from that standpoint. But it still seems very strange. All in all, we have no one left on the staff who has called plays, who has scripted, plays and has a game plan. So for that reason, I just got off my own show, shameless plug for that, Necessary Roughness. If you haven't watched it, Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. But I said it there. I would not be shocked to see the Colts lose this game that they're about to play against the Raiders. The issues are not fixed, and I would. You're throwing in Jeff Saturday. You're throwing in Parks Frazier. I'm not confident. And more importantly, if we continue to lose games, maybe it helps improves our draft stock, which is probably the ultimate goal right now, considering we're not. I can't see us make the playoffs, nor would I want this team to.
Boy, oh boy. I'll say this. When I saw that Jeff Saturday is the coach, and that Parks Frazier, who's never called a play in the NFL, I probably not even called one in college, is going to be the basically calling the plays. I started thinking about a particular game with a particular gentleman that used to be in the booth with Pat Summerall. That would be Madden. And, he may be studying up for the game playing Madden, which that might be interesting. And, he could go for it on fourth down on his own end and be like, we got it. What do we got to lose? He could do that. You never know. So we will see what happens when it comes to that. And you alluded to the press conference. I mean, good gracious. I mean, Irsay, I know you're confident in your guy. And, well, I'm kind of glad he doesn't have any coaching experience. Okay. I don't think I would have told anybody that. But, hey, do what you do, Jim. That's your team. You confident in your guy. Of course, I will mention again, he is the interim head coach. Doesn't mean he is going to be the head coach down the line. However, this does seem like something of a tryout for him to be the head coach of the team next year. So, it does seem that way. But we'll go on to another topic. But one other topic per se. But Jim Irsay, I mean, 5 quarterbacks, 5 years, or it might be 6 quarterbacks, 6 years. I kind of lost track. But to me, does this move signify that they potentially are ready to finally draft a quarterback this year?
Well, actually, do one. I'll do one for you. I'll correct the quarterback sex. It's been 7 since Andrew Luck retired. So that's how detrimental it's been the last 3+ years now. I don't think they're going to admit this out loud, but I think this says to us like, hey, we've got to plan for the future now. In my mind, and this is not a slight to Sam Ehlinger at all, because I think he's doing what's being asked of him. I don't see Sam Ehlinger being the quarterback of the franchise. Maybe he proves me wrong in these last 8 games, but I can't see it now. I think Sam is a good bridge piece to get you where you want to go until you can draft a quarterback. I think that for this team, and if Chris Ballard is still there in 2023, and take that with a grain of salt, because Jim Irsay also said Frank Reich was safe just 2 weeks ago, and here he is gone. I think that you would want to see the Colts in the top 10, because we all know the tendencies of Chris Ballard is not to reach for a quarterback. He's not going to reach at all. So if the Colts were to magically land in the middle of the pack in the first round, they might take an offensive lineman. I mean, they could take another wide receiver. Like, they could take probably any other position other than what they actually need to, which is a quarterback. Stop the quarterback carousel. And I hope that that's what they're doing. But right now, I don't think anyone really knows other than Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard. The staff seemed very shocked by these moves. And the players as well. I've read multiple reports about players being shocked about the move from Matt Ryan to Sam Ehlinger, being shocked about the move from Frank Reich to Jeff Saturday. So yeah, I think Irsay is trying to gain control of this franchise and really kind of right the ship and get us back to what we like to call glory here. But I don't know clearly what they're going for. I can only hope that's what we're about to address.
Yeah, we can hopes and dreams and wishes upon stars, right? That's what we can only hope for when it comes to the Indianapolis Colts and righting that ship. But the future, you did mention what the future looks like. And of course, we'll talk about one particular gentleman, perhaps that may or may not be there in the future. But if you're Jim Irsay, what is your next move? Now, aside from this, let me pause before we say that. Of course, the first thing you're going to do if you were Jim Irsay is admire all the millions that you have. But past that, we're going to talk about, him as the owner of the Colts. What would you do first if you were Irsay as the owner of the Colts after this move?
I mean, I think Jim Irsay has to go in that locker room and he has to assure his guys that he has their best interests at heart. These are really two tough moves that you made, and you didn't really tell anybody. And that's hard on that locker room. Also, I would reassure the staff as well. None of them were selected. None of them were brought in or interviewed or anything. He just went straight to Jeff Saturday. And then, of course, I would reaffirm Jeff Saturday. I think they have a really close relationship. Pat McAfee talked about it earlier today as well. They've certainly had a close relationship before prior to this point. So it makes sense of, hey, him choosing him. But I think what you have to do is secure your guys in the building first and then set out your intentional plans. If your plan is go get a quarterback, great. Make it happen. Like, let Chris Ballard do as you so politely implored last night, that like, hey, he's successful. I want to make sure that he knows that I fully support him. Let Chris Ballard go pick this quarterback. But I would caution Jim Irsay as well is to be very, very smart about the moves that he's going to make, because right now it does not look like very smart moves. It looks like very emotional moves. And that's not just from like a fan standpoint, that's from an analyst standpoint as well. Several folks around the league are like, what is even going on at West 56th Street? So I think for Jim Irsay, he's got to be smart. Outside of that, let's say that Jeff Saturday does not work out as a coach. Fine. I think you at least bring him back as an O-line coach. It cannot be worse than what I'm seeing right now out of Chris Strasser. It cannot be. This is horrific. And you're getting a all-pro caliber former player, of course, and who can certainly be, eyes and ears for these folks on this line. Get them together. Get Quentin Nelson playing like Quentin Nelson has been. Ryan Kelly as well. Braden Smith as well. And then he can probably likely help evaluate talent for this right guard spot and this left tackle spot that Chris Ballard has failed to address properly. That's where I would start. Start with the trenches.
I thought you were going to say, a particular gentleman about helping him, and I'm glad you didn't, because, I know he's not necessarily your favorite guy. But, one thing I will say is that, Irsay, you said about Irsay allowing Ballard to go shop for a quarterback or get a quarterback. You want to make sure he's not shopping at the dollar store. You might want to shop at the most the best of the best, places. No offense to the dollar store, I got a lot of great stuff out of the dollar store, but hey, you aren't going there for the best things, for the top of the line things that you need. No, you're not going to the dollar store for that. You're going to the big time stores for that. So that's all I'm going to say when it comes to Ballard, because I've heard the talk about his nickname, Bargain Hunt Ballard or something.
Bargain Bin Ballard, yeah.
Bargain Bin Ballard. There we go.
Yeah,
I knew it was something. I could not remember what it was, but yeah. It'll be interesting just to see what happens and how this team moves forward. And like you mentioned, and also Fox Sports, Ben Arthur mentioned in an article that he put out that, Jeff Saturday could potentially help this offensive line. He definitely could do that. Also, another point I did have here is, he's an interim head coach and didn't even have any kind of high school coaching experience, any head coaching experience. He had high school head coaching experience, but he didn't have any kind of pro experience, even though he was an all-pro. And it's very interesting how these things happen for people that don't look like you and me in the NFL. Yeah, because you couldn't say that you can't name me any person of color that would actually be hired this particular way. I can't really think of anyone off the top of my head. Also, what I would say is, a lot of times in the interim position, when a black man is put in an interim position, he's not necessarily put there to succeed or potentially be the coach of the next year. In this position, Jeff Saturday is in the position to be the coach for next year. That usually never happens for any coaches of color. So, I just wanted to make that a point to talk about that too, because it's just kind of frustrating to keep going round and round and round, and you get lip service, but you don't actually get the actual work put in and the actual words that match up with it often or, all the time. So just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, I would even add to that, because I actually lit my Twitter mentions on fire yesterday talking about this exact same topic, and I was told, at length, well, people basically accused me of calling Jim Irsay racist or things like that, and that's not necessarily what I was getting at. What I was getting at was that there was not a process here. There was just an appointment. There was just hey, this is the guy. And when you have well-qualified folks on not on your staff, but across the league who could have stepped in for this opportunity, that's going to turn some heads. Not only that, when you don't have this process, you open yourself up for questions, right? And Irsay kind of stepped in it when he said, "Oh, well, Jeff Saturday is going to be here for the rest of the season, maybe more," which means to me, like, full and well that you have to have the Rooney Rule in place when you're interviewing coaches at the end of the season. Does that make this now a sham process, so to speak, if you already know your guy and who you want? Right? Like, it's why are we going to interview other folks, just to say that we have to interview them if we already know, like, this is the guy that we're going to go for and we're wanting him there. The other thing is that this was built on relationship. This had nothing to do with experience or anything else like that. And I think Ryan Clark talked about this today as well. Like, he basically said, "Hey, I really like Jeff Saturday as a person. I think he's awesome, but this is basically about who you know. This is not about what you do or anything else like that." And that's only the point I was trying to make last night, is that, yeah, I give Jim Irsay full credit. And he certainly gave himself full credit in that press conference about, hiring Tony Dungy, hiring Jim Caldwell, Marcus Brady as well, just for examples. But the fact of the matter is, like, this is still unprecedented to do this mid-season, which is the first time he's ever done that in 27 years, fire a head coach, and then to automatically replace him with someone who, by and large, has no experience. They don't have the qualifications to do this job. And you're telling me that you don't think people should question that? You're telling me that you don't think people should feel some sort of way about that? And there were multiple people last night tweeting about how, like, yeah, they'd spoken with several folks across the league, and they were just shocked. They thought this was a mockery. And it's not like I tweeted last night, it's not like the NFL doesn't have a history of disparaging minority candidates, of having shoddy hiring processes. They're literally being sued for it right now. Like, what are we even talking about here? Like, and if we can't talk about that, that's a problem in my mind. And I think that it's a very valid question to ask. I don't believe Jim Irsay to be racist, nor do I believe the Colts organization to be racist. That's not where I'm getting at, of course. But again, you've got to know that this is going to be the line of questioning, especially when you were pressed on it last night at the press conference. You stumbled through your answer about, hiring black coaches. You also gave in my opinion, a very weak answer as to why you picked Jeff Saturday, excuse me. And it was, versus someone on your staff, it was, hey, he was the right fit. He's got integrity. He's smart. He's got leadership. What does that say to the other guys in the locker room? The other guys that are on the staff that have been there in the trenches trying to make, some success out of your football team.
Right. I wonder what Reggie Wayne thinks about this. And I also wonder, and he's a wide receivers coach, by the way, for the Colts. And I also wonder that if he has a plan to hire Jeff Saturday after what this season looks like, if that Reggie Wayne is the guy he approaches for the potential Rooney Rule interview. I wonder. I just have thoughts. But of course, we have reached the end of the show, and of course, there's always a game. There's 5 questions, there's 2 answers, and there's 1 choice. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. You had to choose between these 2 head coaches to take over the Indianapolis Colts next year. Byron Leftwich or D'Amico Ryans?
Oh, give me D'Amico Ryans.
All right.
That's my guy.
All the way.
Yep.
All right. And I'm pretty sure our boy Chris Lewis II would appreciate this question. Bryce Young or CJ Stroud?
Give me Bryce Young, and that makes me sick to my stomach to say that because I'm an Auburn fan. Lord, but give me Bryce Young.
All right. I'm going to give you a couple other quarterbacks. Still sticking in the SEC. Hendon Hooker or Will Levis?
Oh, give me Hendon Hooker, although I have said that Will Levis seems like somebody the Colts would draft. Don't ask me why. It just seems like definitely a Colts type of quarterback they would draft.
I'm still trying to figure out, what is – I don't know. I'm not that high on Will Levis. I see the physical attributes that people talk about, but, I mean, I've got to see it in action. I can't just say, oh, he's going to be something out here just because he looks like the part. He looks the part. I mean, there's plenty of people that get off the bus and look great as physical players, but actually playing the game don't play the game well. So that's my thoughts on him. But let's see. Another coaching situation here. Kellen Moore or Sean Payton? Which one would be more likely to come to Indianapolis if you had to think on it?
I mean, it's probably going to be Kellen Moore, even though I don't like that answer. I think that even though I would prefer Sean Payton, the Saints still own the rights to him, so it would require some work from the Colts to get him here, and some serious convincing too. Why would you come here for this?
Right. Now, last one is about a person that's near and dear to your heart. That'd be Mr.
Gosh.
Chris Ballard. All right. Now, Chris Ballard, do you see him as being fired or retained at the end of this season?
This is probably the first question you're going to stump me on. I know what I want, but what will actually happen? I'm going to say I don't know. I literally have no idea because, again, Jim Irsay has backed people, and then, of course, he just fired Frank Reich less than 2 weeks afterwards. I'll say this. If Sam Ehlinger is a complete disaster the rest of the way, maybe. That's probably maybe when you might see Ballard be fired. Maybe.
I'll say this. I'm going to let you slide because usually you have to pick an answer. I'm going to let you slide on this one. But the next time we got these questions, ain't going to be no maybe. I don't know. Gotta be an answer.
I'm usually not, but I literally don't know with this team. Like it's very hard to feel confident about a lot of things right now. So I hope you'll forgive me for that answer. But yeah, it's a maybe. I don't know.
Gotcha. Okay, well, you're off the hot seat. 5 questions, 2 answers, 1 choice. It's all over. And so is the show. But I want to thank you for coming on, Meghan. And if you would, go ahead and tell everyone where they can find your work. Also, where they can find you on social media. The floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate you for letting me rant a little bit. But I am Meghan Hall. On social media, I am at the Meghan Hall. That's on Twitter. That's on Instagram. You can find me on IndyIntercept.com. I also do the Indy Intercept podcast, as well as helping to manage some of the other AFC South sites for Fan Rant, which is a subsidiary of Stadium Rant. So that is Duval Dropback, that is Texans Insider, that is Titans Tilt. I'm working on building up that content to have some better AFC South stories going on. So that's a new thing for me. So having to write about other teams is a fun ride this season, considering my team is doing a lot. So yeah, check out all that content. We've got some really good content from my writers. And yeah, check out also Necessary Roughness. It is a live NFL show that we do that covers not just Colts content, but all the entire NFL. We do that on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. That's on YouTube, and find that underneath Stadium Rant.
Now, I have a thing I could say. I thought about, with all the things that are going on, all the drama going on with the Colts, I mean, doesn't it kind of remind you of an episode of Jerry Springer if you look at it really, really closely?
Oh, Mike. I will not say that, but it definitely feels like we have no control over what we're doing. And I'll say this. I said to Chris earlier, it feels like if you've ever seen that meme on Twitter that's floating around, there's a guy who's like seriously into conspiracy theories, and he's got all of his stuff up on the wall, and he's got the red lines. Yeah, that's what it feels like, us trying to figure out what is happening with this team. We're just trying to grasp any sort of thing to put together any sort of coherency right now, coherent thoughts right now.
Gotcha. Well, thank you again for coming on, and thank you everyone for tuning in. You've been tuned in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.